Hi, I'm Dr. Daniel Amen, the author of The End of Mental Illness. I'm a physician, a psychiatrist, a brain imaging researcher. At Amen Clinics here, we've built the world's largest database of brain scans related to behavior, more than 160,000 on people from 121 countries. And what the images taught us is that most psychiatric issues are not mental health issues at all, but rather they are brain health issues that steal your mind. And this one idea changes everything. Get your brain right and your mind will follow. Being a psychiatrist for a very long time, I realized a long time ago that no one really wants to see a psychiatrist. No one wants to be labeled as defective or abnormal, but everybody wants a better brain. In The End of Mental Illness, I talk about, well, what if we reimagine mental health as brain health? And when you do that, you decrease stigma, you increase compliance, you increase compassion and forgiveness from families, plus it is more accurate. With a better brain always comes a better life. Help me end mental illness now. Welcome to week 3 of the Brain Health Revolution, End of Mental Illness live class. We're just so grateful for the thousands of people that have tuned in. And this week we're going to continue with the Bright Minds format, but taking a deep dive into each of them. So how was your week?
Busy. It was very busy.
Are we creating mental illness at home or ending mental illness at home?
Anxiety for sure.
So it's been a great week.
It's been a great week, just a busy
one. We are
one.
grateful for all of you. And we have questions. Maybe we'll start by answering a question or two. Last week we talked about blood flow and hyperbaric oxygen. And can hyperbaric oxygen treatment possibly help sleep maintenance and insomnia? And I love that question because one of the first things I noticed in our NFL study is that when players went into a hyperbaric chamber, they started sleeping better. And then I had a patient last week. On Saturday, he went into the chamber for the first time, and sleep was sort of a big issue. And he slept 10 hours that night. So for some people, it can be so helpful. Do you want to answer number 2?
Let's see. What is number 2? What do you think about the use of a probiotic or kombucha drinks in helping the gut? Are they worth it? Absolutely. Now, let me separate that question out. Probiotics, 100%. You should be. That's one of my top 5. When I tell people about supplements, that's one of the 5 main ones. Your maintenance supplements are probiotics. Kombucha can be good, but you're not going to get enough as far as drinking kombucha every day isn't going to give you enough usually to make up for what you would want to add for most of us who have taken antibiotics and done all sorts of naughty stuff to our gut. And you have to be careful with kombucha that you're not buying a commercial brand that has a lot of sugar added. That just sort of negates the whole point of doing something healthy for your body. Unfortunately, most of them do. There are a couple brands that don't have a lot of sugar added. They might be 1 or 2 grams. They're very bitter. I actually like them. They taste pretty good. But those are actually not so bad.
Green drinks,
I do. I like weird stuff. Yeah.
It's like you must have been a cow in your last life.
I'm not sure that went over really well.
It's like she tried to give me these green drinks in the morning and I drink them. It just tastes like grass. And I'm like, I'm not a cow. I'm not doing this.
Yeah. And then I started putting it in his smoothie in the morning.
I did not call you a cow, by the way.
You did. Kind of you did. I think everyone heard it too. So, so that's my answer to probiotics and kombucha.
Hey, James, have Kim get me my laptop so that I can see some of the questions and the dialogue. I just didn't bring it. All right. So the M in Bright Minds is mental health or mind storms. And so let's talk about it. So mental health problems, chronic stress, emotional trauma, grief, depression, bipolar disorder, ADD, ADHD have all been associated with brain health issues. And so getting these treated is really important. That doesn't mean you have to first go to medication head to head against antidepressants. Saffron has been shown to be equally effective. Omega-3 fatty acids have been shown to be equally effective. Walking like you're late, learning how to not believe every stupid thing you think. The American Journal of Psychiatry wrote that nutraceuticals are actually a low-cost option that should be considered for mental health, brain health issues. And so we think, what are the things that enhance your mental health, brain health? Fish oil, we've talked about that. Saffron, I just talked about that. I mean, BrainMD is coming out with a brand new product. So we already have serotonin mood support, 5-HTP plus, Satirial, which is a certain form of saffron. We're going to come out with another one. We're going to call it Happy Saffron in the next couple of months because it actually has the saffron preparation that has been shown in the randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trials that show it works just as good as Prozac, as Zoloft, as Effexor, as imipramine. And to enhance it, Dr. Kidd, our chief scientist, and I decided we're going to add curcumins because that has A-level scientific evidence. It helps your mood. And zinc, which helps in some of the processes to boost neurotransmitters in your brain. Huge fan of saffron. And saffron not only has been shown to be helpful for mood, it's been shown to be it's pro-sexual. So most
they're the opposite.
Antidepressants tend to decrease your ability to have an orgasm, decrease your interest.
No, I mean, if you're a sex addict, that could be a good thing. But if you're not and you want to stay married, then yeah, it's not a good thing.
100% of the time, SSRIs, in my experience, treat premature ejaculation.
Do we need to know that?
You absolutely. If that's an issue for you, that's a problem.
Yeah, if you're married, this is a problem.
It's a problem. But saffron tends to be pro-sexual. It's been shown to help with PMS. And now that I have 4 girls at home, I'm thinking about it more often. And it's been shown to help with memory. And some new studies out that it helps with eye health. So, fan of saffron. SAMe, the supplement, SAMe stands for S-adenosylmethionine, has been actually shown to be helpful for depression and pain. Exercise, we talk about that a lot. Meditation, hypnosis can be very helpful. And vegetables. There's a study from Australia. There is a linear correlation between the number of fruits and vegetables you eat a day and your level of happiness. So up to 8 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, you get happier. So if you have 2 a day, you're not as happy as those people who have 4 a day. Those people are not as happy as those who have 8 a day. So really focusing on fruits and vegetables is really important. And it's not that hard. And you actually have sort of the best strategy for it, which is your smoothies.
Well, it's the only way I can get that many servings in a day is to start off by throwing a few into a smoothie in the morning.
And
although another strategy is, so instead of like eggs with toast, you can throw a couple of eggs over some spinach or, do it that way.
Or you have an egg basket in avocados. Avocados are fruit.
Right.
I mean, most people don't think of it as a fruit, but it is a fruit. Also, the M I put in the end of mental illness is mind storms. So I thought I'd just give them both M's. And thank you. I was grabbing my computer because I want to see the feed. I'm watching number 2. I want to be able to see number 3 so I can say hi to everybody. We had over 8,000 people.
That's really cool.
And here we are. We have 800 people on now. Fruit is sugar. Yes, that's true.
But not avocados.
Fruit, if you keep it intact, has fiber attached to it, which helps mitigate
But
the
but that's
sugar.
a good point. You want to be focusing on low glycemic, high fiber fruits. That's a really good point. So bananas tend to be higher glycemic. Blueberries tend to be low glycemic. So focus on low glycemic. So like in a smoothie in the morning, what I don't want people to do is throw 3 pieces of fruit in there, especially like pineapple and very high glycemic fruits. So I want them to throw a half a cup of berries in there, because you're getting a ton of nutrition for a very small amount of natural sugar. That's how we think of it.
So I'm just so excited. We have people on from New York, Panama, Canada, Florida, Hillsboro, Oregon, which is a beautiful city, New Zealand, Minnesota, Chicago. Thank you so much for being on and
That's
for
really
all
cool.
the chatting and the things. All right, mind storms. Why? Because a lot of people don't know the brain can have abnormal electrical activity, and people think of that as seizures. But what I've seen, if they're in the emotional centers of your brain, it can go with things like mood instability, irritability, temper problems. See if I can get this to work. Oh, no. There we go. Temper problems, anxiety for little or no reason, out of the blue, which is why it's common after traumatic brain injuries, because they hurt this part of your brain called the temporal lobes, which house the amygdala, that part of your brain that senses fear and threat, and your hippocampus, involved in memory and mood. And sometimes people have mind storms, get headaches that are triggered by fluorescent lights. When I was a medical student, 1980, I think it was, Jack Dreyfus, who's the famous founder of the Dreyfus Mutual Fund, he had seen psychiatrists for a long time. He struggled with anxiety and depression and suicidal thoughts, and he read about an anti-seizure medication called Dilantin. He said he got his psychiatrist, convinced his psychiatrist to give him a couple of doses of it. He said within 3 days he didn't need his psychiatrist anymore.
Oh, wow.
The suicidal thoughts went away, his depression went away, his anxiety went away, and he wrote a book that I read called A Wonderful Medication Has Been Overlooked, and he was talking about the use of anti-seizure medications in psychiatry. Now, is that a mental illness
Or a brain illness.
or a brain illness? What do you think?
I think like a lot of things that we look at here.
It's a brain illness. And that's when I started reading Dietrich Blumer's work from Emory on temporal lobe dysrhythmias, means the rhythm doesn't fire right, and it just changed my practice. And I have so many great stories about mind storms, and this is one of my favorite ones. I actually open the revised version of Change Your Brain, Change Your Life with Tommy's story. He came to see us from Orlando, Florida, 9 years old. And he wasn't on my schedule. He was going to see one of the other doctors. And my assistant said, you have to go meet Tommy. And when I found him, he recognized me. He said, "Hey, Dr. Amen, I have a left temporal lobe problem." I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "How do you know that?" He said, "I read the book. I took the checklist in the book." And I'm like, "But how do you really know that?" And he said, "I have a really bad temper. And you say people have bad tempers have temporal lobe problems." It's true. And I used to see ghosts. I'm like, "What?" He said, "I used to see these green things float in front of my eyes, and I thought they were ghosts and they would scare me. And then when I read your book, I realized those are illusions that people who have temporal lobe problems get." So a lot of people diagnosed with schizophrenia, they'll say, "I see things." But the doctor doesn't go, "Tell me about that." And,
Right.
sometimes people will have hallucinations of clear, formed images of somebody yelling at them or.
Right, speaking to them and like hearing voices. But that just reminds me of someone that we know that we've been trying to help recently, who was starting to develop paranoia, thinking that she was being followed because of these lights. She'd see these lights coming out of the ground. Is that sort of what you're talking about?
Yeah.
No voices, no people. Just she thought there were like because there were lights, there must be someone behind it.
And for
so-
her, she actually has this thing called the Erlen syndrome.
But does she have a left temporal lobe thing as well?
Well, she had 19 car accidents,
Yeah.
so one might suspect. But Tommy, I'm talking to Tommy, and he looked at me with his big, beautiful blue eyes, and he said, "In last year, to get rid of the bad thoughts in my head, I tried to kill myself."
At
which
9?
just broke my heart. Oh, my youngest patient tried to kill himself was 4. And
Intentionally?
intentionally, yeah, because he was so depressed. I mean, you don't think children can be depressed.
No.
but
Well, I know they
children
can be depressed, but
can be depressed and have suicidal ideation, and you got to wonder what's going on in their brain. And they, basically say, "I'm insane because I want to look at the brain," but I don't think so. And when we looked at his scan, the arrow is pointing to his left temporal lobe, which is hurt. So he has this thing called
So he was
mind
right.
storms. He was right. And so how do we treat it? Sometimes we'll use anti-seizure medications. The
very scary
ketogenic
picture.
diet. And actually, I'm going to do an interview on our podcast. Check out our podcast, Brain Warriors Way podcast, coming up soon with Dr. Josh Axe, who wrote on the ketogenic diet. And sometimes neurofeedback can help. We've seen it just help so many people. So that's the M, either mental health issues or mind storms. The I is immunity or infections. And did I tell you they released episode 5? Mm-hmm. So yesterday they released episode 5 in Justin Bieber's new docu-series, Seasons, and that's the episode I'm in. I may be in one of the ones coming up. We filmed for a long time. But Justin had the mind storms, so he had that temporal lobe dysrhythmia that I talked about. He actually has a lot of these risk factors.
Well, you got to imagine someone who tours that much, isn't sleeping, isn't eating right, isn't taking care of themselves. They're just set up for it.
Yeah, so he had low blood flow. Retirement and aging didn't apply because he's young, except he had ADD when he was a child. And when you have ADD, learning is painful for you, and the retirement and aging strategy is new learning. But he didn't have the attention span for that. I is for inflammation. He had high inflammatory markers. G is genetics. He had a family history of depression and addiction. H is head trauma. He had 3 concussions when he was young. T is toxins. He started using marijuana when he was 13.
Well, and he talks very openly about his drug use, and it's pretty crazy. I mean, he got to where he was, doing drugs to go to sleep, doing drugs to wake up, doing drugs to get through the day. I mean, he was doing that lean, cough syrup, crazy stuff that kids do now, and like just crazy stuff all day long. So
out of the first 6 risk factors, he's got virtually all of them.
Right.
And then he had mind storms, and he came out publicly and said he had Lyme disease. Actually, it's more complicated than that, but he had this thing called an autoimmune encephalitis, which means
Right.
his immune system turned on itself and actually saw his brain as the enemy and
Yeah, it was crazy.
started attacking it. He had antibodies to his own dopamine receptors.
Well, and I just
in his
remember,
brain.
I remember how sad it was because I remember long after he stopped doing drugs, that kid was just trying so hard to do everything, but it was like his brain was fighting him. It was just so sad.
And so immunity infections are really important. So he came out publicly and said he had Lyme disease. There are also other infections like Toxoplasmosis, which is a parasite you get from cats who eat infected rats. And Toxoplasmosis has been associated with Alzheimer's disease, anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, suicidal thoughts. And I just thought I'd share this with you.
You love this story.
I love this stuff. So Toxoplasmosis, it's a parasite. You can see it in the upper right corner. Oh, somebody's asking, what are you two drinking? It's not
It's
vodka.
tea.
It's tea.
It's non-caffeinated herbal tea.
Toxoplasmosis infects many animals, but it can actually only sexually reproduce in cats. And so this parasite is looking for cats. So when it infects a rat, it turns the rat into a cat-seeking
Okay, that's just
missile.
the craziest thing.
So toxo releases a chemical in the rat's nucleus accumbens and hooks the rat on cat urine. And so typically when a rat smells cat
They try to
urine,
avoid them.
it's like danger, 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 and it avoids them. But when it's infected by toxo hijacks the rat's pleasure centers to make it fall in love with something that will hurt it. Do you see any connection to drug abuse?
Heroin, yes.
To heroin.
Yeah.
Right? And so the rat goes toward the cat rather than away from it. So the cat then eats the rat, and toxo gets in the cat and gets to have sex and reproduce. It's the classic tale of eat, pray, love.
Really?
I love that.
Well, you just, yeah.
So who's really in control of your life? So
Parasites?
Peter, parasites can hijack your brain. Well, I mean, are we in control, or is your microbiome in control? The 100 trillion bugs you have in your gut. And when you were young, because of the stress
And the
you were-
antibiotics
and
and the-
all of the antibiotics, you had upper and lower GIs by the time you were 4.
Yeah, and I was a
And-
frequent flyer at the hospital.
And so your unhealthy microbiome was controlling your anxiety, right? When you were 9, you had separation anxiety, you were having
Mono,
panic
too, at 9.
attacks, you were sort of a mess,
Yeah, mono at 9.
right? And when I asked you about gut and early trauma,
I thought, like, don't shrink me. Don't shrink me.
listen, shrinking you, I was trying to get your microbiome healthy.
Like, I'm a trauma nurse. Don't shrink me.
Anyways, before and after, your brain can heal.
I have seen the light.
So one of my favorite all-time stories, actually, Deb's mother may be watching. Adriana's mother may be watching. Adriana, beautiful,
I love this story. It's
smart.
one of my favorite stories.
16. Her family goes to one of the national parks on vacation, and when they get to their cabin, they're surrounded by 6 deer.
I mean, most of us would think of this as a magical moment.
And they thought of it as a
Yeah.
magical moment. But 10 days later, Adriana starts hallucinating and becomes aggressive. And she's never acted like this before. But she has an uncle that had spent 25 years in the Napa State Hospital, one of the state psychiatric hospitals in California for schizophrenia. I'll tell you the rest of that story in a bit. But so what does the family do? They take you to a psychiatric hospital. I mean, that's what people do, right? If you show up to the emergency room and you're hearing things and you're aggressive, they'll commit you to a
First they're going to
psychiatric
give you
hospital.
a bunch of meds. They're going to make
And
you feel
medications didn't work, so
Right.
she then went to another hospital, and then they went to Stanford, and the doctor at Stanford told the mother that she needed to accept the fact that Adriana had schizophrenia and that she would
Isn't
have
16
to
a little
take
young?
this medication for the rest of her life. And Deb, the mother, was having none of that. No, schizophrenia can start. I mean, the typical age is 19. Paranoid schizophrenia, more late 20s.
That's what I thought.
But the mom was having none of it. It ended up bringing her to us.
But
Literally
wait.
after
You skipped a
Adriana-
whole part of the story. Wasn't she like in a hospital for a while, dropped out of high school? Wasn't this like a whole thing?
She was sick. And
Yeah.
6 months later, she's a shell of herself.
Yeah, that doesn't even look like the same kid.
And she came to see us, and her brain's on fire. And thank goodness one of my doctors go, why is her brain on fire? And heard the history of the deers, because Lyme
Right.
comes often from deer
Right.
ticks. And Adriana, and not everybody shows up positive. Only about 50% of people can you actually find lab evidence for it, but she had lab evidence for it, and on an antibiotic over the next year, she got her life back. And
Such a pretty girl.
she is such a pretty
But she went to
girl.
Pepperdine. She ends up graduating from Pepperdine.
So
goes
she ends
to-
up, yeah, so is this a mental illness?
Then she went to the University of London, right?
Got a master's degree.
Yeah. She would have
and-
spent her life going down, the psychiatric hole to hell.
Well, and so, yes, and now, beautiful, normal, every day about noon, I get a text from her mother, how can I pray for you today? So her mother has gone through so much of my own life crises, right? My mom broke her hip, my mom has shingles, and she's always praying. But
This story just
so
hit me
grateful.
so hard because it's like, as someone who has a child that was around, there was I can't imagine your child starts to suffer this much and you're told put your child in a hospital. You're never going to see them graduate from school. You're never going to see them get married. And
Well,
have
the
a
doctor
family
wouldn't
and-
say that, but to say you're going to have to be on psychiatric medication for the rest of your life at a place like Stanford without ever looking at the brain, without ever looking at, well, what are the other causes of
Right,
psychosis
but most of us
like
think
Lyme?
of paranoid schizophrenia as being pretty extreme. So that's going to change your life big time. And when I hear this story and I'm like, wow, and then you see this picture of her graduating, that's pretty intense.
It's pretty intense. And her uncle, who was hospitalized for 25 years at
Yeah.
Napa State Hospital, and his sister was trying to get him out and basically had to go to court to do it, showed up with co-infections for Lyme. And you just wonder how many people are being diagnosed with mental illnesses when they have brain health issues. So I talk about it a lot in the End of Mental Illness. I would dearly love you to pre-order the book and then go to endofmentalillness.com. We have all sorts of gifts for you when you pre-order the book, including a coupon for 50% off at BrainMD, our supplement company, along with the cookbook you did, the 10-day brain boost, and so on. So, End of Mental Illness, one of my favorite stories in it. So look at the highest rates of schizophrenia across the United States versus the highest incidence of Lyme disease. They're virtually identical. This comes from a peer-reviewed publication,
that's
Schizophrenia
crazy.
Bulletin.
Crazy.
The N in Bright Minds is neurohormone deficiencies. When your hormones are low, you don't feel right. So is that a mental illness or a brain health issue? When your thyroid, so you had thyroid cancer when you were 23.
Then 24. Then 29.
You had it recurrently. And the first treatment was basically to kill your thyroid gland.
Was to take it out, yeah.
Was to take it out, to give you radioactive iodine, because your thyroid cancer spread outside of your thyroid. And they didn't replace your thyroid for a while.
Well, back then they didn't do that, yeah. Now it's different.
And so how did that make you feel?
Like I wanted to die. Like I kept looking at the semi next to me and going, what would it be like to just not be here? Seriously. It didn't start off that way, but just over time, I didn't put it together that it was because of the thyroid. So it was terrible.
And when they replaced your thyroid, did it help?
Yeah, no, I eventually felt normal again. But unfortunately, because no one explained that to me, and he told me to see a psychiatrist, like it was my fault somehow.
Well, seeing a psychiatrist is not a punishment.
It is the way when they tell you. No. The way that they said, like it was like being depressed was, rather than telling me I should expect this. This is part of what's going on with your health. It was almost like you're not handling this well. That's more or less what the message, how it was relayed to me. You're not handling the situation well. You should go talk to someone. That wasn't the case. Now, maybe I wasn't handling it well, but I was also thyroid deficient. And that's what upset me, was when I really understood it later and when I really got my life back. I'm like, someone should have walked me through this process a little bit better.
A little bit better.
So,
no question. Hormones are so important. And I've never seen it like I'm seeing now, this epidemic of testosterone deficiency in teenage boys and men and in women. And think of hormones as miracle grow for your brain. Testosterone's involved in mood, motivation, libido, strength, thyroid, energy and mental clarity. DHEA helps to fight aging. Estrogen and progesterone boost blood flow. I just can't tell you that when you optimize your hormones, you feel so much better.
Yeah.
And one of the things people don't know is that progesterone in women drops 10 years before they go into menopause.
Yeah, I'm technically still not. And in my 30s, I really noticed it, and I would be on the 6 o'clock news without it. I'm convinced.
You want to share more about that?
Oh, I'm telling you, progesterone is the best thing ever.
And so when progesterone goes low, women become anxious, they become irritable.
Don't sleep.
They can't sleep.
Yeah.
And so what happens typically? So they go to their primary care doctor or to their OBGYN, and they put them on Ambien to help them sleep. They give them Xanax to decrease their anxiety, and they may give them Lexapro to help their mood. And that's sort of insane, when what they should have done is measure their progesterone level and supplemented it like 100 milligrams at night. And I've just seen it take care of all of it. But left untreated, left unoptimized, women start either taking medication or they start drinking more.
That's what you hear a lot of people say, especially PMS. And yeah, it makes you, because you just get so agitated. Yeah.
And then your husband's going to get the bottle of wine just so that he's not being harassed when he gets home.
Or chocolate. That's the other one. Women are very drawn to chocolate because of that, because it like settles you down. It increases serotonin, settles you down. Yeah. So you either get fat or drunk. Yeah. Or both.
It's not good. A little progesterone. So Tana doesn't end up on the 6 o'clock news.
Yeah, for me, I'm just going to end up on the 6 o'clock news.
So for hormones, we want you to test them regularly, like at least every year after the age of 40, and then avoid hormone disruptors like sugar, pesticides, BPAs found in plastics, phthalates and parabens found in cosmetics, and a lot of personal products that we talked about under toxins. So Carrie from Dayton said I had radiation in my thyroid about 9 years ago. Was under control until the last 6 months with all my gut issues. I have to see a functional medicine doc, says that it can grow back. Oh, a functional medicine doctor will tell you it can grow back. And then D is diabesity. And I've been showing you the graphs this week that I've been working on. Diabesity, and it's like, this is the end of mental illness. Why are we talking about weight? Because they're connected. Why are we talking about diabetes? Because they're connected. So diabesity is a term that means your blood sugar is going up and your weight is going up too. Either one of them independently is a risk factor for brain health issues. As blood sugar goes up, brain atrophies. Why? Because high blood sugar causes blood vessels to erode and become brittle and break, which means you're not getting healthy blood flow to your brain. And as your weight goes up, the actual physical size and function of the brain goes down. And so this week on my computer, I have our database, and I have like almost 100,000 scans on the computer. And I asked it this question. We look at 127 regions of the brain. And so I looked at underweight, healthy weight, overweight, obese, morbidly obese for each of these areas of the brain. And then I graphed it. And what horrified me, what shocked me, was as your weight went up, in every area of the brain, the blood flow and activity went down. Frontal lobes, temporal lobes, hippocampus, amygdala, everything. And it went down in a linear way, which means the bigger you were, the less activity and blood flow. I'm horrified by that because that means it's damaging your brain. The fat on your body is not innocuous. It disrupts your hormones. It stores
And this isn't
toxins.
about body shaming. It's just really about educating you about what's best for your body, your health, and your brain.
Well, and know the truth. If you're overweight or obese, we're talking about the 11 major risk factors that steal your mind. Well, so that's one. It decreases blood flow to the brain. Clearly showed that in my studies on 20,000 patients. It increases inflammation because fat cells actually produce something called adipokines, which are inflammatory hormones or inflammatory chemicals. It stores toxins and disrupts your hormones. Mm-hmm. So, like, you have 5. If you just have that one, it means you have nearly half of the risk factors. And so it's the work you do on helping people get to a healthy weight is just so important. One of my favorite stories of Mark and Debbie, who had type 1 diabetes, and he and I were at a conference 6 years ago, and I watched him inject himself with insulin at the table, and then ordered chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes and gravy, cornbread, and his souffle for dessert. And I love Mark, and so if I don't really like you, I'm not going to say anything. But if I love you, I'm going to say something. And I was cursing at him in my head, but I didn't say anything because I have good frontal lobes. I just went, how tall are you? And he said, 6 feet. And I said, how much do you weigh? And he gave me that look like, why do you want to know? And then he said 244 pounds. And underneath the table on my phone, I calculated his BMI, his body mass index. And so normal's 18.5 to 25, 25 to 30 is overweight, 30 to 40 is obese, over 40 is morbidly obese. He's 33. And I looked at him and I'm like, dude, you're obese. And he looked at me and he said, Daniel, you're so cold. And I said, not as cold as you're going to be when you're 6 feet under. What's the matter with you? Why aren't you taking your health more seriously? And when the food came, he didn't eat anything. I felt terrible.
No, you didn't.
Sort of.
I know you.
But a month later, he told me he'd lost 10 pounds. And 2 years later, we met at the same conference. He was down 53 pounds. He had cut his insulin dosage in half. I asked him if it was hard. He said, being sick is hard. Thank you for caring enough about me to have that hard conversation. And then he's sitting there with his wife, and they're telling me how great their sex life is. And that's what we see. Get healthy, your blood vessels get healthy, your love life gets better. Being sick is hard. So talk a little bit about an overview. We're going to do a whole night on food and supplements, but what are things people should know?
So number one, there's no suffering required, and it really, you just have to know some of the basic rules. So, think eat from the rainbow. I mean, that's one. You want to eat from the rainbow. So fruits and vegetables, many colors. So think of protein like medicine. So small doses throughout the day, not too much at one time. So, and when I tell people that, it's like shake hands with protein several times a day. What do I mean by that? Like the size of the palm of your hand is what you want for protein. So that's an easy way to remember about how much to have several times a day. Why? Because protein helps to balance the hormones of metabolism. It balances your blood sugar. It helps to satisfy you so you're not so hungry throughout the day. Whereas sugar, if you're eating carbs and sugar all day, simple carbs, they're going to spike your blood sugar, make you hungry. As soon as the more carbs you eat, the hungrier you're going to be through the day. So when you eat carbs, it's not that we don't want you eating carbs. We want you eating the right carbs, smart carbs. Smart carbs are high fiber, low glycemic. So that's one of the rules is high fiber, low glycemic carbs, which are things like we just said, the rainbow, right? So fruits and vegetables, but fruits have to be low glycemic, things like berries. And then lots of greens. So that's going to be your high fiber type of rainbow foods. Cook with lots of herbs and spices. Those should be kept in your medicine cabinet, not your kitchen cabinet. They're just so powerful. And they're a great way to, herbs and spices are the way that when you're eating really healthy, this is how you make everything fun and tasty and zesty, is your herbs and spices. At the same time, they're just boosting your antioxidant level like crazy. So that's one of the things you're going to do. And don't forget the fat. So we are not interested in low fat programs, but we want you eating healthy fat. So cut the trans fat, cut the fried fat, focus on really healthy fats like avocados, nuts, seeds, olive oil. Don't cook with olive oil at high temperatures, but you want to add it to salads, things like that. So healthy fats, healthy protein. When we talk about protein, make it grass-fed, hormone-free, antibiotic-free. Even if you're a vegan, you want to make sure you're getting the right amount of protein. Don't just cut protein from your diet. So make sure you're getting some organic tofu. We don't want you getting too much estrogen, but we do want you getting enough protein. So high-quality protein powders are a good way to supplement. So just make sure you're getting that throughout the day. And then make sure you watch the amounts. So the quality of your calories matters so much more than the quantity, but it doesn't mean that the quality or the quantity doesn't matter at all, right? So quality over quantity, but it doesn't mean quantity doesn't matter. So what do I mean by that? So if you're eating 800 calories of Oreos and Twinkies versus 1,600 calories of a really high quality diet, I mean, like salmon, nuts, berries, avocados, lots of fruits and vegetables. The 800 calorie diet is not going to serve you well, right? You're not going to get the nutrition out of it. And guess what? A lot of people are like, yeah, but you'll lose weight. You will only lose weight for a while. And here's why. You're going to lose weight because of the calorie restriction. And then all of a sudden your inflammation is going to go up, because as your inflammation goes up and your blood sugar stays sustained at a high level, you're releasing insulin. And when you release a lot of insulin, insulin is like this, it's this hormone that tells your body, put fat on, put fat on, put fat on. Right? So that's why for a while you're going to drop because of the calories, and then pretty soon it's going to start to do this, and you're going to tank your metabolism. So the higher calorie, higher quality diet is much better. Now you can't go crazy. You can't eat 4,000 calories like that, but you get to eat more when you eat healthy. So we don't want you doing crazy fad crash, calorie diets. We want you to go healthy.
A lot of people ask questions about cleanses and detoxifying. And
we want you eating a cleanse all the time.
Our position is basically you want to get rid of the toxic food all the time if you like yourself.
Right. Now, that said, can you do a 24-hour fast? Of course, you can do a 24-hour fast. That's okay. We don't really we're not fans of 2-week fasts where you're not eating, because it's not good for your brain. You'll start to lose focus and you can't exercise.
Your brain will start to autophagize,
right.
which is eat itself.
So short-term fasting, yes. Long-term fasting, not so much. Just eat super clean. So do a short-term fast, then eat super clean.
And intermittent fasting.
Right, intermittent fasting is great.
Which is going 12 to 16 hours.
I tend to go 12 hours anyways.
Intermittent fasting has actually been shown to help mimic the effects of calorie restriction. And it's not hard. If you have dinner at 6 o'clock at night, don't eat again until 10 o'clock the next morning. Mm-hmm. And then the S in Bright Minds is sleep issues. It's just so important. 60 million Americans have sleep-related issues, things like chronic insomnia, sleeping pills, sleep apnea can devastate the brain. And what we see in sleep apnea, actually the brain looks like it has early Alzheimer's disease with these pitting decreases across your parietal lobes in the top back part of your brain. It's not good for your brain, because your brain is the most oxygen hungry organ in the body. Mm-hmm. And any oxygen debt state damages the brain. So when you sleep, your brain cleans or washes itself. And this study is really interesting. Soldiers who got really 7 hours of sleep at night were 98% accurate on the range. Those who got just 6 hours were only 50% accurate. Think about that.
1 hour less.
5 hours, 28% accurate. 4 hours, they're dangerous.
So now think about that. How many times have you gone, oh, I didn't sleep last night. I got 2 hours less, but I'll just push through. I can do it. Anyway, I can do anything for, I say it all the time, especially getting through college. I can do anything for, a short amount of time. Lack of sleep, no problem. It is a problem. 2 hours less made them 25% as accurate. So that's just a huge problem when it comes to your life.
So I like this comment from the Skylark. Better to give the body a good foundation of health nutrition before trying to do cleanses or fasting.
Yes, I agree.
Your body needs the tools before it can do detox safely.
Yep.
I just think you should be detoxing all the time.
Live in a detox state, but that doesn't mean you have to fast.
So shift work, I'm doing this program. Tana is actually going to help me with it, with the Newport Beach Police Department. And police officers, firefighters, first responders, nurses often have shift work. Mm-hmm. And there's a toll to those of you that are doing shift work. Higher incidence of obesity, diabetes, hypertension, inflammation. It negatively affects your hormones and can increase cognitive impairment. So let's just go through these risk factors.
I quit after 4 months of working nights because I thought, oh, okay, I'll figure out, I'll adjust to it. Yeah, my way of adjusting to it as a trauma nurse, I was so afraid I was going to fall asleep. I was eating M&Ms all night. I was eating M&Ms and drinking coffee all night. And then I'd start to fall asleep every morning when I was driving home. Then I couldn't sleep during the day because my brain just doesn't sleep during the day. And then I found myself heading for a center divider one morning. And I'm like, I'm done. That's it. So for me, it was 4 months before I realized this lifestyle is never going to work.
And did they teach you how to manage shift work?
Of course not.
Isn't that crazy? You're in a medical center. You're in a world-class medical center at Loma Linda, and they put you on nights, but they don't teach you how.
Oh, and they put
to
you on
do
nights and you work double shifts. That's fun.
All right. So how do you manage shift work? Brain envy. Make it a priority. Before work, you want to plan your light exposure during the day. A bright light box, and BrainMD has a brand new light box, so you guys should put the link so they can see it, in your morning to reset the circadian rhythm. Limit caffeine to 12 hours before sleep. The time to exercise is before work, not after work. And limit shift changes to try to allow your body to adapt. After work, limit bright lights. Low dose melatonin. We have a brand new sleep product coming out called Put Me to Sleep. So excited about it. It's chewable. It's got lower dose melatonin, but along with theanine and 5-HTP and magnesium, scab. I'm so excited about it. Make sure you have a routine, sleep and wake up at the same time. Avoid meals and alcohol 2 hours before bed. People put themselves to sleep, especially police officers, with alcohol. It's just a way to manage the stress, but it's actually over time increasing their stress. Blackout shades, really important. I know that's important for you.
Oh, no, I've gone around the room with duct tape and covered every single light source I can find. Like, I've got duct tape over everything. The stupid fire, what is that? The fire, alarm, the smoke detector. Like, everything in the house has got duct tape on it. Yeah.
What if you're a contractor and never work the same hours each day?
Yeah, it's tricky.
It's tricky. You have to make it a priority. I was eating M&Ms, coffee, and drinking Coca-Cola.
See? Is that a nurse?
Probably.
Yeah.
So bedtime routines, things to calm you down, bath, soothing music on BrainFit Life, our online app. We have hypnosis. One of my favorite tracks is Hypnosis for Sleep. Lavender, the scent of lavender.
Oh, I found the best lavender bedtime tea by Buddha Teas or something. Oh my gosh, it smells so yummy. And it's just so soothing right before bed. Every night, that's my...
You should put a link on tanaamon.com. So you can improve your memory tomorrow by getting better sleep tonight. So basically, with all of the Bright Minds risk factors, know if you have it, avoid things that hurt it, and then do things that help it. I mean, that's like so simple. And so for sleep, you want to avoid caffeine, a warm room. You are freezing me out. No, I have never had to wear pajamas since I was like 7.
67.
And now
the room
I'm
needs
like,
to be
I'm
67.
buying all these pajamas because she's freezing me out.
It's the only way I can sleep. I sleep like a baby if it's freezing cold, and I am up all night. Like, it just drives me crazy.
It's reminding me of when I was in the Army and we'd do...
Aren't you happy?
Drills in the middle
For me to be like, are those good memories?
In the winter, we'd have to be in a tent for 3 months. No, those were not good memories. Just give me a moment. I just need a moment.
67. That is my sleep temperature.
Warm room is problematic for sleep.
Yes.
Your gadgets, turn them off. Alcohol, all of these are bad for you. So a dark room with no noise, except sometimes we have sleep-enhancing music. I don't know if I told you that
You've told everybody repeatedly.
Billboard's New Age Artist of the Year,
We are never going to hear the end
in
of
a
it.
row. Because of Music for Bright Minds.
Even though he's never been a musician.
But I create the music with my friend Barry Goldstein. But our album Feel Better Fast and Make It Last I think it was like the number 5 album last year. It's pretty cool. But we have sleep strategies, sleep music for you, hypnosis, as we said, and then supplements can help. All right, these are the 11 major risk factors that steal your mind. Next time, we're going to talk about supplements for your brain. And I hope those of you that are watching that you engage in the challenge that we have for you. So,
Are we getting people sending their stuff in?
we want you to fill out your online survey each week so that we can know
Enter you.
if you're better, if you want to be entered into the challenge, and we
I mean,
want to
come on,
know
it's
your
like we got great
progress
prizes.
and your questions. In fact, we might have time to answer a few more questions. Why don't you look at that while I give you your tasks for week 3?
Okay.
So day one, right? Do I have a mental health challenge? There's a questionnaire to help you realize that. Download it, fill it out. You don't have to send it in, but we just want you to say you did this. Day 2 is decrease your screen time, even just by 15 minutes a day, because screen time can mess up your sleep. Day 3, get 20 minutes of sun or take 5,000 international units of vitamin D. You know, I pretty much want all of my patients to take that to get a high normal level. Day 4, find 20 foods you love that love you back. We're going to give you a handout with 100 brain healthy foods. Just circle 20. Find 20 more foods you love that love you back. 6, hypnosis for sleep. So we're actually going to give you the download. And day 7, limit sugar. And we're going to help you track that. So these are the week 3 tasks. Do them. And we have just a couple of minutes. Do you have a question you're going to answer?
There are some great questions here. They're just hilarious.
Okay, we have 4 minutes.
Okay, so I don't even know where to start, but this is so good. Let's see. What are more foods that we can eat to give us omega-3s rather than taking supplements, which are rather expensive? I'm a huge fan of trying to take the supplement because it's just a higher dose and a cleaner source.
It's purified.
Right, it's purified. But because you would need to eat a lot of fish, basically you need to eat a lot of fish, you can get omega-3s in other sources, but they're not the right kind of omega-3s. And you're going to end up getting some omega-6s.
Well, so the Monterey Bay Aquarium
Right.
has an app
Right.
called seafoodwatch.org,
Right.
and it'll tell you the healthiest, cleanest, most sustainably raised fish. And sometimes farm fish is okay, and they will tell you, eat this, don't eat that.
Right, but eating several servings a day, you can end up running into problems like several people we know who end up with high mercury levels. You just have to be careful. So that's one of the issues. Blue-green algae, but that's, again, it's a supplement. So you're into that same supplement.
Somebody has a question. Where do we get the materials for the assignments? So underneath the live class, there's links to the surveys, and actually, I don't see the link to all live class Survey Monkey. Oh, for class resources such as downloads, go to, and there's a link, endofmentalillness.com /brain. So there's a link for you underneath the video.
So there's a couple here you might want to answer. So, but there's one here that's funny. What do you take when you puke when you take fish oil? So there are some people who are really sensitive to the big capsules and some people who are just super sensitive to the taste of fish oil. One thing I recommend is like say a teaspoon or a big tablespoon of almond butter, something like that that's heavy to keep it down. It might make you feel a
Or
little
have
better.
it after you eat. For me, initially, I had to have breakfast or lunch, and then I would take my supplements afterwards, and they wouldn't bother me.
Me too, but I need something sort of fatty and heavy to keep it down for me. That's
There are
just my...
some liquid fish oils. We're actually going to have a liquid fish oil coming up that tastes amazing. So watch out for that coming soon.
This one's really good.
Which one?
There's a whiplash one here.
How does whiplash cause brain injury, and how soon would symptoms appear? If a baby or toddler suffers a head injury, do you recommend a brain scan or wait and see? Does insurance ever cover brain SPECT scans? Okay, there's 3 questions
Right.
there. Whiplash damages your brain because people think of it as a neck injury, but what's on top of your neck? It's your brain. Slams the front, slams
Like
the back.
shaken baby.
It can cause
You go to jail for that.
shearing, damage to blood vessels, scar tissue, and the symptoms actually may not show up for a couple of months because it takes time for the scar tissue to actually form in the brain. If a baby or toddler suffers a head injury, if they have any neurological symptoms, the first thing is making sure they get a CT scan so that they don't have a bleed. Probably I wouldn't recommend a SPECT scan until they're about 4 or 5. And yes, insurance often will cover SPECT, generally not for psychiatric problems because that has nothing to do with the brain, but for things like dementia or traumatic brain injury or toxic exposure or infections, insurance companies often will cover it. Generally, you have to fuss with them a bit. All right, well, we are out of time. We are grateful to the 1,000 people watching, and over this next week, we'll probably get 7,000 or 8,000 people watching. Thank you. The end of mental illness begins with a revolution in brain health, and our goal is to create brain warriors. Please pre-order theendofmentalillness.com, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere great books are sold. If you pre-order it and then go to endofmentalillness.com, we'll give you all sorts of gifts because we want to create brain warriors. Also, go to brainwarriorswaypodcast.com. You can, if you like Tana and I and the craziness we have between us, we have nearly 600 podcasts you can listen to. See you next week.